All right, everyone. I wanted to let you all know that we are going to re release 10 of our favorite episodes from 2024 to give ourselves a little bit of a break from recording. I really appreciate everyone that listens and subscribes and shares and tunes in every single Saturday for the last 3 years. We'll be back in a couple of months with new interviews and new information and new resources for all of you awesome entrepreneurs out there. Make sure to stay up to date. Follow me on Instagram, Patrick.Casale, and all things private practice. Doubt yourself, do it anyway. Hey everyone, you are listening to another episode of the All Things Private Practice podcast. I am really excited to be joined today by Arielle Jordan, the visionary behind Mindset Quality. And she is a distinguished private practice owner, a PhD candidate, proudly standing at the intersection of Black-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, and woman-owned enterprises, a EMDR, PTSD, grief and trauma expert, an author, a speaker, all of the things that I'm not going to list right now. And we are going to talk about grieving the impact of military racism and unpacking layers of loss. And I really wish we had been recording because we've been talking for like 10 minutes before it. There's so much here. And one, I just want to say how honored I am that you're here and willing and feeling like able and prepared to talk about something that feels heavy. And I
Yeah.
just want to really just set that stage. So thanks for being here. If I missed anything in your bio, please feel free to add it. And yeah, share a little bit about who you are and why this topic feels so important to you.
Well, thank you for having me, first off. And so I think you covered a lot of it. I'm one of the ones that cringes when you read the bio, but um, yeah, I love to do EMDR therapy, and I have tried to niche a little bit more. And I tend to be drawn to veteran first responders and military community, and also have experience working with that community. So I think that that's where my heart goes towards, and grief as well. And I've worked in other settings too, like community mental health, methadone clinic, hospital settings, and things like that. But private practice is really where I found that, like, the beauty of freedom. I can do what I want to do, and that's still new. So I'm still learning on, like, what else can I do that I want to do, and how do I serve this group that does not feel draining to me. And even though the topics may be heavy, I actually enjoy getting to the roots of problems and showing veterans, first responders, anybody with trauma, that it doesn't have to stay that way. Like,
Mm.
we also can heal trauma. It just takes strategic methods and time, and then you start to see changes in your life. And I think that's my favorite part.
I love that. One thing I'll say is I don't miss waking up at 3 in the morning to work at the methadone clinic at 4 a.m.
Oh,
That was horrible. Worst thing I've ever
no.
done in my life.
I
I,
did it for years, and I do not miss that at all. I will say I got great experience working with all different types of people in that setting. However, I do not miss it at all.
the alarm would go off and I would just be like, what is happening right now? Is this real life? Oh my God, I have to go to work. I used to like put
Mhm.
my chair against the door of my office, turn the lights off and fall asleep and then be like, people are like banging on my door. Oh, he must be in the files room or he must be doing drug screens. I'm like, leave me alone.
I just, like, in that setting, I felt like I had no life. Like, I would go start you would have to start at 5, so be there before that, and then, yeah, you get off at, like, 2, but you're drained from all the everything that comes with the day. And I was in my master's degree program too, so I had no
Yeah,
life. Sleep and work and school.
that was awful. I don't want to diverge too much because I want to circle back to the important stuff here. But yeah, what a
Absolutely.
horrible. People will say, "Oh, you're so lucky. You get off at 2. You have the whole day." No, your brain is and your body just shut down. You're in bed by like 6 p.m.
You're done.
Terrible. So I so often think that our niches in our practices and our businesses and our passions are because we have a similar story, a similar version. We've experienced it.
Mhm,
And you yourself have experienced loss, and you yourself have experienced racism within the military. And it
mhm.
sounds like that has gone from a place of this feels really hard to talk about to a place where you're like, I want to talk about this more so that other people who have similar stories know that they're not alone.
Right. Exactly. I think that when I think about the the layers here, the layers of loss and grief, the layers of the military environment, the layers that racism manifests there. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about it. And I think it's just really important because there are systemic issues still. There are still unequal opportunities and institutional betrayal. And those things have a collective impact on the BIPOC community within the military as well. So when I think about just that group, like, I wanna bring light to those experiences and talk about it on a deeper level so that we can understand those challenges.
And I applaud you for that because I think it's brave. I think it's a thing because it feels like almost like secret society. We don't, it's probably a situation where a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking out or speaking out about their experiences. So I
Yeah.
really want to just name that, and I don't want to minimize that at all. How are you feeling as we're on air, like recording and you're talking about this and just putting this out there?
Um, I feel like a little bit of excitement. I'm also nervous because I am being recorded, and that's just a thing.
Is a thing.
It's a thing. So, but it's okay. Like, I feel okay. I feel like I've thought about this enough that I can talk about it. I've done EMDR work with my own therapist as well. So I feel like it's not a danger anymore. Like, my amygdala is not screaming at me like, don't do this. When in the past, yes, it has. It has absolutely been a fear of talking about it or a fear of even really going there. But I do feel like now's the time. Why not?
I love that. And you mentioned to me before we started recording, and you also DM'd this to me that it's time for you to stop hiding.
Mm.
Can you tell me about that?
Yes. And so the more I learn about racial trauma, I think that's the root of the feeling for me, like, that I need to hide. And I think that when I go back to military times, like, absolutely. I'm trying my best to just be as small as possible, and that's really not who I am. Like, I really have a lot to offer, and being quiet or hiding is it's not going to show, it's not going to showcase that knowledge or that skill or that uniqueness that I need to bring to the table. And so I'm still learning, but it's great to have the opportunity to put that in practice, that exposure.
Showing up is scary, and showing up and talking about something that is vulnerable or has repercussions potentially is even scarier. So I want to let you guide this conversation. So tell me about what feels important to talk about when we're talking about the military, when we're talking about your own experience. You can go
Mhm.
as deep as you want. Just yeah, I would love for you to just share where you want to go, and we can help kind of walk down that pathway together.
Okay. So I guess I'll start with my personal um, connection to the theme. So a lot of spaces, and this came from one of your other talks. I was just resonating with, like, a lot of spaces. I'm the only Black individual there. And so I related that back to my military time. So during basic training, there was everybody. I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and there was just a little mixture of everybody. I had Black drill sergeants, I had just all different types of people. But of course, I'm gonna notice, like, are there any Black people here? And so I was like, "Oh, okay, this is cool." I mean, I might not have had great experiences with all of them, but they're there, representation, right? But then when I switched over into the reserves, I was the only Black person at my unit in West Virginia. And immediately it felt different. I felt fear. And there was one other lady there that was Hispanic. And so we kind of connected right away because we're the only ones that are different. So there's in that unit, just like the microaggressions that you experience, like, oh, I know you don't want to hear this type of music. And it's like, well, how do you know what I want to hear? It will be simple stuff like that. Um, I remember going to a active duty training and coming back injured, but being a Black woman in the military, I felt like I had to carry my weight. I felt like I didn't want anybody to help me with anything. No, I can carry this, even though it's heavy. I don't need your help. Or I can put this up, or I'm strong, I'm tough. And I really am. But that can be detrimental to your health sometimes. And when I was in Nevada, I tore my shoulder, but I didn't know I tore my shoulder. I knew it hurt, but I carried on. Um, the mission was complete. We went back home. And so the thing is, when you're on active duty orders, and you get hurt, they have to take care of you. So when I came back, I said, "Hey, it's still lingering." I did go to the hospital there. They were like, "Oh, it's tendonitis. We'll just do a cortisone shot. You'll be good." Well, it was not tendonitis, and that cortisone shot hurt very much, and it continued to hurt. And after that, we were going back home, and I was like, "You know what? I'm really still in a lot of pain every day," and I got dismissed. And I luckily my dad was in Vietnam, so he was like, you was on active duty orders. They need to take care of you." And so I go back and I'm like, "Hey, what can we do about this?" And meanwhile, they're not really giving me a helpful response. I'm getting my own physical therapy because I need it. And I went to see my own orthopedic surgeon who then told me, "Hey, your shoulder's coming out of socket because the main ligaments in your shoulder are torn and we need to repair them." So I went ahead and got my own work done because of the pain I was experiencing. But then, like, I was 17 when I joined the military, so I was very young. And my parents had to sign for me to go. And I'm learning all of these things as I go. So my credit was screwed. I'm getting all these services because I need them, but I also don't have money to pay for them. So that became, another additional stressor. So I go back to my unit and they're like, we can't help you, the responses. And so my dad gave me advice to write the congressman of Virginia. And I wrote him, and I guess it was his secretary, but his secretary responded so quickly and was like, "Oh, we're outraged that one of our veterans is not being helped." And so my unit got in a lot of trouble. And then they were like, "Well, she got unauthorized care," and none of that mattered to the governor. The governor's like, "My soldier's hurt, take care of her." So they had to go back and fix my credit. They had to go back and, clean up a lot of stuff. And after that, they hated me. They absolutely hated me. And so that was like the first incident. And then another time I heard my sergeant use the N word. And I was in like the way that so I was a culinary specialist. And the way that the kitchen was, there's like a window in the kitchen. So there's two separate rooms, but you can't necessarily see who's in the other room. And so I'm just in there chilling because there's nothing to do at the moment. And I hear him, he gets mad at another sergeant that is the same rank as him. And he said he was getting N-worded. And I was like, first of all, what does that even mean? But okay. So by then I'm like, man, it sucks because I like this guy. Like, he was outside of that, he was a good guy. And so now I'm like, do I do the equal opportunity complaint or do I let it go? But I had let so much other stuff go and they were just treating me bad. So I did the confidential EO complaint. And it was like, it almost was like I wasn't taken seriously. And then the guy came and he apologized, but his apology was, I didn't know you were in the room. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were in the room. It wasn't sorry that he said it or anything else behind it. It was, I'm sorry you heard it. And I was just like, wow, okay. Um, well, I did all the steps that I know that you're supposed to do. And then later on, the other lady that I was close with came up and said, hey, I heard what so and so said, and that's horrible. And I'm like, how did you hear a confidential, you know, complaint? How did you hear that? And so it was just a mess. But I know now I can't say anything confidential because it's not confidential. And so I was like, okay, that's another, incident. And then the last incident was just me being pregnant, and I had a high risk pregnancy. So I couldn't show up like I was supposed to show up. And I kept getting marked unexcused. And it was just like, why are you marking me unexcused when I told you what's happening? And they're making it seem like, oh, you just don't want to come. And that wasn't it at all. And they didn't know the struggles that I was having with my pregnancy and just the things I was learning within that, and also a newlywed person as well. So those unexcused absences resulted in losing my student loan repayment, which is a lot of reason why people join the military. They need help with school. So that was a mess that I don't think can be fixed. And then when my daughter was diagnosed with pulmonary vein stenosis 3 months after she was born. And before that, though, she was a preemie that was in the NICU. So I'm living the NICU life, and I realized that she has this rare disease. I Googled the disease because the doctor did not really help. The doctor was like, we'll send her home on palliative care. And I looked up what palliative meant because I didn't know what it meant, but I realized that's like hospice. And I was like, no, I haven't done anything yet. I need other answers here. So I did research, and I found out Boston Children's Hospital has a trial study. So we went to Boston, and again, I'm letting them know what's happening. And not one person reached out to say, are you okay? And she died almost 2 years later. And not one person said, is everything all right? So it was just horrible the way I was treated. And then when she died, I reached out to a recruiter because I didn't know what else to do. So my time was up. I had written a letter before that, like, hey, I need to focus on my daughter. Can I just be placed in inactive? And they did. They placed me inactive December, and then my daughter died January 29th. So then I was like, well, shit, I don't know what else to do. So can I get back in? And it's crazy to say it, but that's all I knew. But the guy was like, yeah. And I told him, I said, I don't want to be in culinary anymore. I want to do more like human resources stuff. He says, okay, well, human resources is hot. So if I see a job, I need your signature so that I can go ahead and slip you in there. And I was like, okay, sure. Told him what all happened to me. I just lost my daughter, all of that. And he was like the safe person, or he felt like it. He PCS'd, which is where your duty station gets moved, to California from Virginia, and puts me in as a culinary specialist because that was the easiest thing for him to do. And I didn't know it either. So I'm trying to get my life together. My life is falling apart. I lost my daughter in January. My father died in April, same year. And I think I separated somewhere in between there. So I was getting a divorce too. So all of this loss that I'm experiencing, this man then put me in some unit that I have no clue. And I'm trying to get my life together. I finally decide I'm gonna go back to school. So I moved to Delaware and I get a call in Delaware that next year, like, Specialist Jordan, why are you not reporting to duty? And I'm like, who is playing on my phone? And he was not playing on my phone. This was an actual sergeant. I hung up with him because I thought somebody was playing. And so I got a letter and I was like, oh, this is official. Oh my gosh, let me call this person back. I called them back and then I get the can't get right type of treatment. So I show up to Fort Belvoir now, and Fort Belvoir was great. They treated me awesome afterwards. And it was interesting to see the different diversity there. Now I'm sure they have their, stuff too, but that was like just looking around, I see diversity. And although at first they're giving me the side eye, like, okay, the soldier hasn't showed up for drill, but then I tell them I didn't know. And I tell them my story and they're like, okay, well, so they were listening to me. They gave me a chance and then I was able to excel there and I started to do well. Their kitchen wasn't functional. So I'm like, all right, what we need to do. I jump in, I get the catalogs, we start ordering stuff. Eventually we got it up to cooking and serving and it was a great time, like getting it put together, being able to serve. And child time for military folks is like a great time. We like to eat and have good food, so you make others happy. So that was where I was at. I was like, look, I'm gonna make the best of it. But I think through that experience, I did not want to grow in the military. I consider myself a high achieving person, but in that setting, I couldn't. And after everything that I went through in West Virginia, I didn't want to. And then when I got to Fort Belvoir and I started to see that I could be more, my first sergeant was Black. I was like, oh, so wait a second. And I started to think about it. But I had put in a packet before I left West Virginia to get out because of my shoulder. And this packet was lost. No one knew, no one could update me. So when I get to Fort Belvoir and I start to excel, all of a sudden the packet came up. So then I was on my way out medically. So I did medically retire, but it was just bittersweet because I knew I knew I could excel, I knew I could do better, but it did push me on a different path and I'm grateful for all of my experiences, but it was a lot. And so that's what got me thinking about the layers of loss in my story and also others as well. So it's complex and there's lots of discrimination, there's lots of microaggressions, there's the internal negative cognitions that we create, like I'm not good enough or I can't do better. And I think that's what brought me to this topic because I was like, you know what? It's a lot. It's heavy, but it needs to be talked about.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm really, really sorry for the losses that you've experienced. And I just,
Thank you.
it feels like there was almost grief and loss as you were moving through the process of being in the military, as if like there was
Hmm.
this idea of what it could be like to be a part of this culture and immediately to find out like that's not even close to the reality that I'm experiencing. And
Yeah.
so much dismissal too in terms of advocating for yourself and what you knew you needed, yet continuously being told like you're just making more of this than what it is, or it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yep. It makes you feel very isolated, very alienated. And that grief over like the loss of camaraderie
Right.
and the supportive community, which is crucial for your mental well-being.
And there's almost and there's betrayal there too of like I'm trying to advocate for myself, yet that is being betrayed in confidence.
Mhm.
And I'm being like ultimately forced out of this place that I actually want to be a part of. And then
Yeah.
and then compounded with the loss of your daughter, the loss of your father, the loss of the the marriage or the partnership, and
Mhm.
just trying to continuously figure out like I'm just trying to like exist here, right? Like I'm just trying to fucking show up.
Exactly. Exactly. Like there's so many pieces, right? There was fear as well. My unit got deployed and I was scared to death. I was like, please don't send me to Iraq with these people because they're gonna get me killed. I'm gonna die. Like
Yeah.
I literally had the feeling of I'm going to die. And luckily, they didn't need my MOS. They didn't need a culinary specialist, so I didn't have to go. And I was so thankful because I was really afraid. And that's a real fear for not only me but a lot of people of color in certain places. And it doesn't I mean, it's much better than like 1940s when they decided to integrate for the first time, but there's still some stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously I can't speak to this because I'll never experience it. I can only experience it vicariously through like what my wife and her family and my in-laws and friends and colleagues go through. But despite it not being 1940, like it's 2023. So the fact that
Mhm.
this just consistently exists and it's pretty amplified with social media and the ability to just post things whenever we want. There's
Right.
almost there. I have to imagine there's grief of just being like, enough is enough. Like, what are we doing here as human beings? And
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, the constant exposure, it contributes to mental health challenges. We like anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I think that's just like the common experience for BIPOC individuals navigating racism in the military.
it's almost foundational, right? Of like this, of course, this stuff exists. Like, of course, these mental health struggles are occurring because how could they not be?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, like, do you keep your cultural identity? Do you tuck it away? Like, do I stay true to my roots? Do I, it becomes part of the emotional landscape. I know I have, so I know I have lighter members in my family. I mean, I'm kind of light myself, but there's lighter people than me that could pass for white. And I remember conversations because my my dad and my uncles and just like different members of family have been in the military, different branches. And I remember like thinking of some of the stories they were saying, like which side do I choose? If I know that black soldiers are going to get killed, do I act like a white soldier because I know that that will save my life and I can go back home.
Right. Yeah. I imagine that there's a lot of code switching that also has to happen within these environments where you have to try to protect yourself to the best of your ability, which probably creates a massive identity crisis in a lot of ways as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then just the system, like the system's broken. So I go to file the EO complaint and it's supposed to be confidential. And in the office, that's what was told to me. But then how did the other person know? Because I didn't tell them,
Right.
And so like there's the loss of trust in the institution that's meant to provide me protection and support.
It's
It's
so
wild.
compounded, like you said, layer upon layer upon layer. And you're young in this experience. And most people who
Mhm.
serve are young in these experiences. So it almost feels like you don't even have the ability to advocate for yourself. And the student loan situation, fuck man, like that's even worse. Like that's loss and grief too, right?
I'm
So
like, "How do I fix this still?" Like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
still comes across my mind, like, how do I actually reached out to people, they're like, "Well, you were marked unexcused." I'm like, "But how can that not be fixed, though?" I know it's years later, and, dealing with the loss of my daughter, I did not self-care was not a thing, like, I did not care
sure.
after that loss, like, it was heavy, and so I don't think people understand that that kinda takes you offline for a bit. Like, there
Absolutely.
are no annual doctor's appointments or dentist appointments and all of that stuff that we do to take care of ourselves because I don't care. I lost my child, my only child.
Right.
And that's hard. And then losing my father, who was also a very important figure. Like after that, I'm like, what do I do? How do I even pick myself up from this? Like there's 8 months of my life that I don't even remember at all.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, it's like a fugue state in a way because
yeah,
dissociation has to be the strategy here because how could it not be? Um,
yeah, yeah. And so to recover from that, I think I just got curious. I think I was like, it's funny because what was it, August that I went to the EMDRIA conference because again, I love me some EMDR. But Roger Solomon is the grief guy. Like he worked with Francis Shapiro and his presentation wasn't working. And he's like, is anybody brave enough to, volunteer? And so I raised my hand and he picked me. And so he's like, what's your grief story? And I don't think I realized what I was volunteering for fully.
right.
But so I had to do a whole processing at this conference in front of all these people. I mean, I didn't have to, but I volunteered to. And oh my goodness, I remember just he asked me like, he was talking about resourcing and how we can resource for EMDR and grief. And he's like, what was the point? Like everybody has a point where things had to change. Everybody has this. What was yours? And mine, I remember just like looking in the mirror after about those 8 months. And I was like, something's gotta be different. Like you're too and I'm talking to myself mentally, like, you're too smart to just sit around and waste away. Like, what are you gonna do? And it was just being very real with myself in that moment. And when he resourced that, like I'm a tough person, right? I just am. And he resourced that, 2 little tears fell. I was like, "Oh my goodness." It was so powerful because I felt like in my body, I felt so much, um, just like being very proud of myself because I really like it's real. I really had to pick myself up and keep going. And I turned it into, let me get my bachelor's in psychology. Let me get my master's in clinical mental health. Let me be the first person in my family to complete a PhD in counselor education, which is not quite complete yet. I'm working on my
Yeah,
dissertation,
that's
but I'm getting there. But that was a moment for me like, wow, I am doing it. So there was a pivotal moment. And then also with EMDR, the worst moment was going back to like the hospital room and leaving the hospital without her.
for
That
sure.
was my worst moment. By the time we got done with that EMDR session, I went back to the hospital room and instead of seeing like not being revived, like her not being revived with the CPR, I saw the support I had. And it was wild. Like I went back to the same scene and I'm seeing like how who showed up for me in my moment of severe pain. And so it's different. And that's why I believe in that modality so much because I've experienced it for myself that we can heal these types of things.
I'm getting like tearing up listening to this. So this is powerful.
I'm glad. I mean, it's tough. It is such a tough subject, but that is why I was like, I have to tell my story because it feels like how you reframed it before we got on here. Like, it feels like, what if you don't tell it? Like, like now I feel like I have to tell it. Like, if it feels like a duty almost, and like going back to them army values, that duty is embedded in me.
I'm
So
just thinking about people who are listening and people you're going to interact with as you continue to tell this story and talk about your book and host these intensives. And I think this is advocacy at its truest form is to be able to kind of be with the pain and the grief and the resilience of picking yourself up and navigating life despite these challenges and just showing up authentically and saying like you can't be the only one who has had the similar experience, right? So
yeah. Yeah. And I think that, when we talk about these things, we are kind of ripping the Band-Aid off of some stuff. And yes, ripping that Band-Aid off hurts, but we have to hurt to heal.
Mm. Ooh, that might be the title of this episode. There's always a
I
line that stays with me. So
But yeah, because I mean, once you understand these layers of loss, I mean, it's crucial to foster empathy and advocate for change and develop strategies to address all of these things. And just to know that somebody might come in your office and talk about just one part of it. And you don't get the full picture of everything else that may be going on underneath of that they may not even ever tell you.
so true.
And that's what I've encountered a lot, like working in a military hospital, treating active duty soldiers. There's a lot that they're not going to say because, especially active duty, because they're still in,
Right.
they're not going to say some things. And I know it was more profound to me when George Floyd got killed that this, huge black first sergeant comes and sits in my office and it's like, I don't have to tell you why I'm angry. Nope, you absolutely don't, because I'm angry too.
Right.
And we can share those moments because they're the fear of like documentation and things, especially in the hospital setting. You got to document those soap notes,
Sure.
like, and but I'm like, I'm still trying to create that safety for you because you can still come in and you can still share your experience with me and know that it's going to be documented, yes, but I'm also strategic with my documentation. So I also know the importance of you as a human and needing to heal and be okay.
Absolutely. And it's almost that understood experience, right? Like I don't even have to say it to have it understood. And
Mhm.
that's why representation, which is another topic that we were talking about,
Yeah.
because you were mentioning Micah's talk at the summit that I'm hosting, is
Mhm.
so important in the mental health community and at large to have people of color in these positions, to have therapists of color that exist, so that when people scroll through Psychology Today or whatever site they're navigating, it's not just white faces looking back at them.
Yeah. And then I think another thing that I took away was like that you don't have to be scared to go in an area where there's not many of you. Like, and that's kind of been my story. Every agency, almost every agency that I've worked at, I'm the only black therapist or the only black clinician there or and it's so noticeable to me. I don't know if it's noticeable to them or not, but it's noticeable to me when I walk in a room and I don't see anybody else like me. And I think that when we talk about like microaggressions and things like that, there is the am I good enough that shows up.
Yep.
You look at, you go in a room of 50 some presidents and you're looking at the wall, you don't see a reflection of anything that represents you. So you're like, dang, can I do that? Can I be president? And I remember like even growing up, I don't think I had very many black teachers. So can I even be a teacher? Like if I don't see it, how do I know what I can do?
Absolutely. Uh, Representation is so, so important. And I've become so hyper vigilant and aware, probably being married to a black woman living in the South, of like wherever we
Hmm.
go, I always pay attention to the room. And I'm like, always try, I can never experience what she experiences, but I always try to place myself in a situation where it's like, where am I the minority? Where do I ever have to go where I feel uncomfortable or different than? And
Hmm.
really, it's not many spaces. So
Hmm.
I'm just so aware of that, and I can never imagine the reversal. But one thing that comes into mind, and this is just it's a safe space, but like when I go to
Hmm.
my in-laws for holidays, I'm like, I'm the only white person out of 40 people in the house. I'm like, okay, this is a place where I can really
You can
acknowledge this,
relate.
but it's
Yeah.
also a very safe place to acknowledge it too. So it's just, I'm glad that we're talking about this stuff. I'm glad that we have people who are wildly successful as coaches, as entrepreneurs, as podcast hosts, as therapists who are openly talking about this and showing up and having this representation, because then children, teenagers, young adults who are looking out and saying, other people who look like me are doing these things. And I think this is so so important.
Yeah. And I think as you were talking, I was just thinking about like military community. A lot of times they don't even want to talk to you unless you're part of the community.
Right.
Like, and even working in the methadone clinic, I remember being judged like, well, how you going to help me if you've never been addicted to anything?
For sure.
And so then I would fight with like how much to self-disclose because in that community you have to be careful because it might be thrown right back at you.
Totally.
So I would craft a response and I would say, I don't deal with addiction every day. You're right. However, I deal with grief every day. I deal with waking up in the morning without my child.
For sure.
And that is an everyday struggle. And the only difference between me and you is that I made a different choice and we could easily be sitting in different seats had I not made a different choice, right? Because we all try to numb or soothe our pain if we don't know how to take care of it properly. And
Right.
so that's why I'm here to help you. And then that would be my little speech and they would be like, "Oh, so maybe you can help me. Well, let me okay, let's work together now rather than against each other."
But it's amazing the power of just openness and vulnerability because we're in a position professionally where it's about relationship building. It's about relational work. I don't think we can get there without being open and being vulnerable and being real. And I mean, I have experienced addiction myself as a former gambling addict. So, and I do think the addiction community, especially at large, really wants to know if you get it. Like that's like one of
Mhm.
the first questions they ask you in every single session.
Right.
And I get that because I know what it's like to sit on the other side of it, to say like, I feel so misunderstood and I feel so
Mhm.
shameful and I feel so stigmatized. And I think that's why I always talk about accessibility being relatability and being
Mhm.
able to be relatable, especially in this line of work. Because if
Yeah.
you can share a little bit of your story, that can have this profound, not just ripple effect, but almost like avalanche effect within the community. Because
Mhm.
for marginalized people to say, whether it's BIPOC, part of the LGBTQIA plus, neurodiverse, whatever, people feel misunderstood. They feel like they don't belong. They don't feel safe. They don't feel comfortable. So if you can share as the mental health professional, like, I kind of get it. I don't know the exact scenario of your life, but I kind of get it. You can have
Mhm.
those moments like you had at the hospital with that sergeant who came in during George Floyd's murder, and you don't even have to speak about it. You just
Mhm.
get it. And I think that allows you to break down so many barriers and so many walls within this professional field.
Yeah. Creating that safe, inclusive therapy space means everything.
Yeah.
So I definitely take pride in doing that for each and every person. So I think that, when we talk about these things, that is the takeaway. Like, how do I support this client dealing with combined challenges of grief and racism? And then also if they're in the military, okay, so they're tough. So they're not gonna show emotions because that's not what they were taught to do. And so when you catch somebody coming out of retirement and they're trying to navigate family life and stuff like that, it's weird. And they're like, wait, so my wife or my husband complains about me not being present or me not feeling anything. And it's like, oh, okay, so I gotta help you know what emotions are. I mean, showing an emotional chart to some of my people who want to know more, like it has been a game changer because they're like, wait, so content can be under happiness? Oh, I don't like it, you know. So, and I've struggled with that myself. So it's interesting that we just create that openness to have a broader understanding.
I love that. Yeah, it's almost like deprogramming some things in some ways too, and then just like
Hmm.
reteaching these
Yeah,
fundamentals where it's like this stuff has gotten lost because you had to bury it in order to perform or do your job or do your duty. Um,
absolutely.
this man, this has been one of my favorite conversations in a long time, and
Awesome.
I just want to say again, I appreciate you sharing and being open and just being vulnerable and being real because I think that's what we strive for here. And I'm really excited to meet you next month in person.
Yeah.
I'm excited for what you're going to be creating and putting out to the world, because like we said, what if you don't talk about it? What if you don't share it? What if it doesn't exist?
Hmm. Absolutely. I'm excited to meet you as well next month. I think that it's gonna be the missing piece of all the like structure that I need. And I think after that, I'm gonna take off running.
No pressure on my end then. Great. No,
I mean, they say, you got to crawl to walk to run. That was like one of our things. So I've been walking. So I think I'm ready to run.
time to run. Okay. Well, challenge accepted. Please tell the audience where they can find more of what you're doing and how to follow you or how to find your stuff.
So my website is mindsetqualityllc.com. And I try to keep it updated with anything new that I come out with. And my Facebook and my Instagram is also on there connected, so you can just click it. But on Facebook, I'm Mindset Quality. On Instagram, somebody took it. So I'm Mindset Quality Therapy.
Sounds interesting.
And yeah, so I was like, well, they're not even using it, but whatever. And also on TikTok, I'm Mindset Quality as well. So and if you forget all of that, you can just find it on my website. I'm also getting ready to launch. I'm calling it Freedom Found. It's a veterans EMDR intensive. So breaking free from veteran related PTSD. And I want to teach them that, it doesn't have to stay this way, or even first responders too. But we talked about that niche thing. So, but they fit under the category. They experience some of the very same struggles of invisible wounds of PTSD and feeling trapped by their experiences. So, I'm going to be rolling that out pretty soon. And hopefully it takes, and I'm able to keep doing great work with EMDR.
Sounds amazing. And I hope for those of you who are listening, if that feels applicable or you have someone in your life that you can share this with, I highly recommend sharing Arielle's resources. I think these are invaluable and so needed. So really cool stuff. All of that will be in the show notes so that you have easy access to it too, in case you
Yes.
just can't listen and write at the same time like myself. And
Uh, I
thanks again.
think so also I wanted to offer, like, when on the air date, I wanted to offer my book for free that day. So when
Cool.
we talk about that, I'm gonna put in the Amazon code. So that day it will be free, and it's called Holding Space on Amazon. You can type in Holding Space Arielle Jordan, or you can go to my page and it will be there.
It's a very generous offer. So we will make sure that is included so everyone has access to that. Really cool stuff. Really great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope it was a stress-free experience to some extent.
It was very stress-free. I do feel like I was being myself. I feel like I was able to be myself. It's a safe space.
That's what we aim for here. So you did a great job. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on and thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks, Patrick.
And to everyone listening to the All Things Private Practice podcast, new episodes are out every single Saturday on all major platforms and YouTube. Like, download, subscribe, and share. Doubt yourself. Do it anyway. I'll see you next week.